Hi, everyone. I hope that you're having a good week so far as we dive into some more climate change pedagogy. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the media, misinformation, and balanced reporting. One of the first articles, Meteorology, warns us against stereotyping someone as being pro climate change or con climate change. And we're warned against this because it goes beyond two sides of the story. And instead of giving the foundation for a healthy scientific discussion, we actually build a platform for personal attack. Climate change has actually been proven by the scientific community through scientific research and fact, which has been replicated by many different peer review instances. The challenge of moving beyond two sides of the story arises when only bits of information are released to the public. And in fact, in meteorology, the authors urge and encourage advocates or scientists that they need to paint a more balanced picture of the research that they are presenting. And specifically, the article references the idea of a game or potential danger that can arise when scientists are trying to advocate for climate change. This occurs when scientists acknowledge some credibility from opposing information or opposing views, or when some of their statements are taken out of context. Furthermore, this can happen when talk shows, radio shows, or news reports display a 50-50 or one versus one debate between climate change advocates and climate change adversaries. But what does it really mean to have balanced reporting? Does it mean that we weigh good buzzwords with bad buzzwords? Or instead, does balanced reporting really give some sort of context in a different way? Balanced reporting starts with this idea that there is a difference between the right to be heard versus the right to be taken seriously. Specifically, if an idea fails to take ignition, or there's an idea that cannot be proven by scientific fact, it does not mean that it needs to be taken seriously. Further, we also need to avoid the temptation to look at both sides of the coin. Specifically, when we're talking about climate change, I think it's important in the classroom to ensure that our students understand some fraction of the scientific method. So please excuse me as I give a small but brief lesson. As a scientist, it's been ingrained in me that in order for research to be of sound mind, in order for research to be considered proof, it has to undergo the rigors of the scientific method. As mentioned earlier, it's been proven through the scientific method that climate change is an ongoing process. Specifically, data was collected in a lab, studies were done, and other scientists outside of the original group were able to replicate the same results. In other words, they were able to arrive at the same destination. And this happened multiple times, especially as our techniques became more and more advanced. We were able to collect different data, and we were able to show, or scientists were able to show, that climate change is happening. In fact, this is the common view of the majority of the scientific community. So, that's the head side of the coin. What's the tail side of the coin? The tail side of the coin is the opposing view to climate change. However, if the head side of the coin had to undergo the rigors of scientific method and scientific process to prove that climate change is happening, or simply to be unable to reject the idea that climate change wasn't happening, then the opposing view, the tail side, should also have to undergo the same rigors. And I think that this idea of scientific method, as well as critical thinking, is something that we need to be able to unpack within our classroom. It's not enough for somebody with authority or somebody of sound mind to simply impose their views on somebody else and for those views to be taken as fact. We need to make sure as teachers and as educators that we are showing our students the difference between sound reporting or balanced reporting and the sense of false balanced reporting. Specifically, in false balanced reporting, we need to make sure that we are undergoing the same amount of criticism for both sides. The last thing I want to leave you with is the idea that the average day citizen, teachers and students, are faced with climate change warnings and the idea of climate change every day. From the moment we wake up until the moment we go to bed, mainstream media and sometimes academic sources are offering their opinion on climate change. So, how does this influence our thinking? Are those buzzwords that we saw at the beginning of this presentation striking fear? Or is mainstream media over-reporting the chance of a possible climate change disaster? How do these ideas influence the way that we as teachers are able to unpack climate change within the classroom? We have looked at balanced reporting in the eyes of the media and what that means. But my question to you, and something I think we all need to be cognizant of, is how balanced reporting needs to be reflected within our teaching practices.